Good afternoon, everybody. I've got today with me Cleo Shortland from VPO Risk Management. Hi, Cleo. How you doing?
Good day. I'm doing okay.
We've had a request for some more. I got accused from a friend of mine of having I think it was Boys for Boardrooms or some slogan that she bandied at me late last year, and they wanted more females on the show. And I said, look, I don't really know too many females that would come on and speak like this. Maybe I need to broaden my networks, but obviously that's my failing, not theirs. But I sort of racked my brains and I thought, who could we get on that has a really neat narrative, has a journey from sort of rags to riches, so to speak. And Cleo was top of my list. I've known Cleo for quite a long time, where she worked in the law firm where I started off as a junior solicitor, started off as an office junior, and then on one ill-fated day for Cleo, came and joined my boss and I on a pretty big M&A deal when no one else would really come and work overtime, and got her hands dirty, and then became a legal exec, and then ended up in, was it Perpetual Guardian, Cleo?
Yeah.
Yep. And then helping manage and having a very involved role with a North Shore law firm for a couple of years before starting VPO Risk Management. So it's a really cool journey in a very short space of time, from someone who didn't go to university, didn't get qualified initially, really grafted from the bottom, no job too small type of attitude. Now you've got your own business, and as you and I know, you've had quite a few attractive opportunities lately to commit really to resell yourself for what would be a wage which you've either turned down or attempted to use that as a launch point to negotiate, to continue your freedom, so to speak, to transact on your own account, to recover that margin, and to be able to, shape your own dream and your own future. So I thought that's it's about all I can think of. Claire and I were just talking before we came on air about how we're both pretty whacked, exhausted. I think I've been really resilient through all the other lockdowns. You try and G your staff up. Our staff are awesome. They're all, really digging their heels in and working hard and taking that whole ethos, which I've tried to espouse on them, as like this really separates the wheat from the chaff, and the people who want to make excuses and say, oh, it's another lockdown, I don't need to work or keep focused. Having said all that, this one's been, I think, the hardest for me personally, because even though there's nothing objectively which has gone wrong, or there's no, really terrible circumstances for me in my business, it's just emotionally, it's like kind of this whole roller coaster of, oh no, not again. We're just starting to get momentum, and it's been a really challenging week. I've been pretty tired and grumpy this week. One of my staff, Luella, sent me home a few days ago. I was bitching and moaning about something which is not really normal for me, and she said, I think you need to go for a walk. In other words, you're just pissing everybody off, which I was. So we all have our moments, and that's sort of the general ethos at the moment, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, the reason why I'm in the kitchen is my apartment looks like a walking health and safety disaster waiting to happen. My son's on the balcony, is like umbrellas and everything all over there, and I think yesterday I was the same as you, Shane. I was just really snappy, and I'm never snappy. I don't do that. But yesterday, my son was like, maybe we could practice being kinder to each other tomorrow, and that made me feel that banging and stuff that you'll be hearing in the background is him. So I think today I just decided to take a step back when it comes to homeschooling and Malachi. When it comes to homeschooling and work, I'm just doing what needs to be done each day instead of trying to push. And I think during lockdowns, if you're trying to push too much, it's just wasted energy. And looking at the big picture of, say, the next 30 years, 7 days doesn't seem like that long. So I can afford to take a step back if it means, conserving that energy for the next 30 years. Yeah.
I think I don't have children, and I'm a single man. So if there's any eligible suitors out there watching, feel free to send me a message afterwards. But all jokes aside, I don't have those sort of obligations to go and have to do, but I've just found myself really tired this week as well. And I haven't, and it's not like I said I have to go and look after anyone or do anything like that, although I have commitments in, in some of the groups I'm involved with. But I mean, what I'm trying to say is sometimes you're just tired, and I like push myself. But sometimes you just, like the other night, I just gave up at like 5 o'clock. I just couldn't keep going, and that's not normal for me. And I just felt guilty, and then I just went for a walk, went and got a kebab, and bought some chocolate, and ended up watching my show, The Blacklist, which I can highly recommend to anybody out there looking for a show with James Spader from Boston Legal. Awesome show, and just literally put my headphones in and watched that for the evening. And then the next day I felt refreshed again. And it's like, even if you don't have children to look after or relationships you have to give time and effort to, sometimes we're just wiped out, and just to recognize the emotional turmoil and stress all this has on us.
Yeah, definitely. And like I was wanting to do a post yesterday on one of my social platforms around how I was feeling, like authentically and honestly, because I feel like shit at this week, and I'm the same as you. Like usually I've got so much energy, like I exercise, do all my work, do independent parenting, and I do it really well, but this week it's fallen to shit, to be honest. And
it's a write-off. Yeah,
like I couldn't do that because I didn't want I didn't want clients to see that post and to judge me and think that I can't deliver, or my peers to judge me. So I felt like there was this societal pressure that I was putting on myself. It's probably just in my own head, where I can't be vulnerable, or I can't be seen to be tired, because there's already that kind of judgment that maybe I can't handle all of this stuff that's going on, because this week it does feel like I can't handle it. It's too much, and that's why I've taken a step back this week to just do what the bare minimum, and then regroup over the weekend, and then hopefully we'll be out of lockdown next week and I can get back into it next week.
I think that this is probably a better forum to communicate that concept than a post, because a post can just be taken as yet another person with the case of the poor me's, and obviously there's people around the world and in, for that matter, in Auckland and all over New Zealand, far worse off than you and I, have had businesses which depend on human to human contact, which literally cannot trade at all. As much as ours have been hit, they're not, literally not trading at all. And businesses with hundreds of staff, and it just must be awful. And then there's people who have lost their jobs, and all of those people. So I whenever I sort of feel like posting like that, which is not often, but it was the other day, I kind of check myself and think, it's not really that bad, and I never want to be part of that group of people who post in that way, because I never find it helpful. I only find it helpful when I'm miserable myself, and I think, it's okay. I don't want to be one of those people. But having said all of that, in the context which you just articulated so beautifully, sometimes we just feel shit and we're not having a good day, and we just, there's nothing wrong with that. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to just, Cleo, before, so we're not all just doom and gloom and for us in the lockdown and for everyone, do you just want to, because I think it's a really cool story. So do you just want to, maybe I gave a bit of a foreshadowing or background about what you did in your 20s and how you got to found VPO Risk Management last year, but do you just want to give us a little bit more of a kind of narrative around what you were doing just before you launched VPO, what gave you the idea to launch it, and what you're doing, and some of the maybe challenges that you've had recently, in that process, and how you're navigating them?
Yeah. Is that Crackle? Is that me, or is it you?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure that out here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
When I talk, it's clear, right? I think it might be you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'll just shut up and then it'll be good.
Yeah, I'll just talk. Yeah, so yeah, and I guess you've been a big part of that journey as well, because you were there when I first moved to Auckland, and then also when I decided to go out into my into business for myself as well, which is quite cool. So yeah, I started working for a medium-sized law firm I was 20, and no qualifications. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, but I did have hard work ethic, and I was really driven. So I did was driven to succeed. And I remember one of my jobs was to literally like unpack the dishwasher for everybody. And everyone used to shit on me in the firm. I was like at the bottom. There was a receptionist that had I reported into her. So there was no one below me. I remember like one time a senior associate asking me to do his Christmas shopping. And when I refused, he threatened to tell the partners. So those were the kind of
I know who that would have been as well.
We know. But that was just one example of how people used to treat me, as they did with the junior staff in those days. But yeah, how I dealt with that is, I'd obviously I didn't do the Christmas shopping, and I would say no. But I just kind of flew under the radar and absorbed everything that was going on around me. The really cool thing about being a junior staff member is you're non-threatening. So you hear everything. You'll be in a partner's office and you're hearing all of these conversations and you're learning everything that maybe even that senior associate wasn't privy to. So as Shane mentioned before, I had this really great opportunity to work on a really cool file, and it required working after hours and putting a lot of effort in. And I remember just being overlooked because of my position. It was so junior. But I was really willing to do the work, and I put so much effort into it that I was really able to impress that partner, which led on to 2 further promotions within the firm before I went overseas to do my overseas education. And then returning back, I specialised in trusts, so really got into a specialist legal area where a lot of my roles, when I'd leave them, I'd have to hire lawyers to take.
I think sorry to interrupt you, Cleo, but it's really crackly. Maybe it is your internet.
Oh, maybe it is. Hang on. Is that there?
Yeah, someone said Cleo. Someone has just come on and said Cleo's hard to hear. Maybe switch it. I think it is yours. Why don't we take you out of the studio and then put you back in again?
Sorry, what was that? Did it? No.
Try now.
Hello. Was that better? No.
No.
Just wait 1 minute. I'll just try something else. Malachi, do you know where Mummy's headphones are? Okay. Yeah, so I can't find my headphones either. If it's is that better? No.
It's a little bit better. I think we'll just have to put up with that. That's the best you're gonna get, guys. Sorry, we tried.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I've been on
That's a bit better.
days,
Whatever.
Oh right. Okay, maybe
that's a bit better. Yep.
Nice. Cool.
Keep going.
Great. Where was I?
The floor is yours.
Yeah,
just
so,
talking about. Yep.
Yeah, so basically just worked my way up. I worked after having Malachi. So on my OE, I was blessed with the beautiful surprise of a pregnancy. And then I came back and went on parental leave. When I returned back to work, I just had this incredible drive to really succeed. And I didn't really know what that was, but I knew I just had to work really hard. So I spent the next 5 years really pushing myself, and I had this great opportunity to run a law firm for a couple of years where I led 6 major projects as part of change management and modernizing an old fuddy-duddy law firm, which I can say that because that was the directive when I came on board, was we don't want to be an old fuddy-duddy firm anymore. But it was in the first lockdown last year when I was finishing up my final project, and I realized I wanted to go out on my own, and the work that I was doing, I wanted to package that up and help other businesses manage their staff through change. But I didn't know what that was going to look like. How could I have the skill of being able to manage staff through change, but how can I apply that? Like, what value can I add to what businesses are doing? So I actually called Shane. And I called Shane after I spoke to a few people that told me that I was really stupid and should just stick with my job. I mean, everyone remembers that at that time, we didn't know what COVID meant. We didn't know what would happen to the economy. I think there was lots of chat around, a recession and things like that. So Shane was one of the first people to say, you can do this, and that was so valuable to me, because it's hard enough starting a new business, as I've recently found out. But all you need is just a couple of people to say, yeah, you can totally do this, and give me a call if you have any issues. So yeah, thanks so much, Shane, because that was really valuable to me, especially because even my own parents were saying, oh, maybe you shouldn't do this now, maybe wait until after Christmas. Tried speaking to the directors of the firm and they said the same, like, great idea, but maybe wait until after COVID. But I'd still be waiting now if I had taken that advice, because we're still in the midst of it. So I went out and started my own firm and a risk management firm, because I saw there was a real need for change management when it comes to risk and compliance. And because I had such a strong background in anti-money laundering, not just in the law firm, but in my background dealing with foreign trusts and the accounting firm that was tied up in the Panama Papers, which is another story for another time. But yes, I took that. So I took that and started. Yeah, it was 9 months ago now, and I've seen that the market has responded really positively for that. I'm working for some really complex AML issues now, and that comes from, in the beginning, getting my first couple of clients that were really taking a chance on me, to now, I've been able to demonstrate that I can deliver, and that this change management is an incredible service that's needed in this space. I'm really starting to see some momentum now after all of the grunt work over the last 9 months. So yeah, that's basically how I came to today.
Yeah, an interesting point about getting out there and just starting. I know guys who, 9 years ago when I started this business, I know guys that want sought my counsel, so to speak, on how to start their own business. They're still working for someone else and still hating it. And I know, guys in my midst now who want to start their own businesses, but have been wanting to do so for a year or 2 years. And there's always a reason why these people don't actually jump out of the plane and just get on with it. And it's because there's something holding them back, something in them that, and it's just really, it's not usually any particular event or any particular fear, as in a rational fear. It's just fear itself that's holding them back. And I think you're a good example of that, Cleo, that if you can just jump out of the plane, so to speak, you will, through hunger and necessity and having to look after Malachi and provide a roof over his and your head, and like you said, your independent parenting, you have to do it. So you will make that extra phone call. You will pick up the phone at 6 o'clock on a Friday night if someone calls you about something. You will, at the cafe, overhear someone who works somewhere and have a chat with them, because that may lead you to the next job. You will do all that stuff once you're hungry. But if you don't actually jump first and you don't go and take the plunge, then you'll never be able to, you'll never actually do it. And that's the worst position to be in. I was thinking about this the other night. You're better off being a happy, content employee, earning a salary, turning up from 8:30 till 5 or 6 or whenever you work every day, and doing it with a smile, and coming home and enjoying putting your extra energy into your family or the local sports club or hobbies, than you are being a slightly disgruntled or majorly disgruntled employee that has visions or delusions of grandeur of doing your own thing, but never quite having enough guts or whatever initiative to actually do it. Because for some of those people, and I've sailed close to this sometimes, a few times, for some people, it's not a good idea for them to be in business themselves. But guess what? My dad's a good example of that. He had his own business for a while, and he was okay at it. He didn't lose money, but ultimately he went back and worked for somebody else. But he said he was able to earn and do so much better after realizing how hard it was to do it on his own. So for him, kudos to him. He paved the way for me. He went and did it. It wasn't a raging success, but it wasn't a failure either. And he ended up all the better for it because he took the plunge. It didn't end in an entrepreneurial success story, but it ended in, I think, greater understanding for people who run businesses, greater contentment within his later to be employed role, and probably an increased skill set and a bit closer to a bit of time, a bit closer to the bone of what it actually takes to acquire clients, manage those expectations, manage the staff to actually deliver the product, and then have your ear to the ground for every other little nuance in a business that you need to keep the thing running. It's a hell of a set of skills, as you're starting to appreciate now. There's a hell of a, when you think about it, if any particular client, we're dealing with a few tricky situations this week and everyone's stressed, like you said, everyone's tired, and how you approach someone or how you say certain things to them or not say certain things to them could be the difference between them getting the shits with you and walking away and missing out on a continued great relationship and a lot of fees. That could be all. It can be all the difference in the world in those subtle, nuanced ways how you interact with your clients or with your staff or your suppliers or just anybody you interact with your business owner's hat on. There's a lot of nuances and challenges to it.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of challenges, and I think I think what you were saying about going and giving it a go as well, that just sometimes you just got to take the plunge and get out there and do it, and that even if it fails, I don't think that is a failure in itself, because there's so much that you learn by going out, as it sounds like your dad learned as well, that the respect for someone who does, because what you're essentially doing is you're taking an idea and creating a living out of that idea, because you have no clients typically. Well, I didn't. When you go out on your own, you don't. It's really just like bringing an idea to life, and that in itself is so creative and amazing. And if you are able to make a living out of it, that's incredible. But also identifying whether that is for you, because it is really hard. I think that could have been one of the reasons what would have prevented me from going out into business, because so for everyone, so I'm solely financially responsible for Malachi as well. So there's that additional pressure that, I can live off 2-minute noodles. I don't really care, but I certainly don't want my child to be living in that way. So and there is a standard of living that I want him to be living at, But when I spoke to you, Shane, because there were a lot of people that said, well, you have obligations. And it was my parents that were saying that you have financial responsibilities to Malachi. And, that kind of freaked me out a little bit, because I was like, wow, that's actually true. Like, yes, this is something that I desire to do and I feel passionate about. But sometimes we can't pursue our passions because of our responsibilities. But speaking to you, and I think it was the importance of speaking to you is you don't have children, so you don't have that underlying fear of or you don't have, you're not thinking like a parent, and sometimes that's really great to hear. And for you to say to me, because everyone else was saying, because you have a child, you shouldn't do it, but you said, because you have that financial obligation, you will make it work. Because it's the difference between feeling uncomfortable making that call to the client and following up with them, and maybe it's a really uncomfortable conversation around how my fees are too high, or how they didn't like me or didn't like what I was offering, or am I going to feel uncomfortable not being able to buy my son's soccer gear? So the option's really clear for me, and that, those are first world problems as well. I recognize that, but it's an expectation that I have of myself and how I provide for Malachi, and I certainly want to achieve that. So that fear of not being able to do that drives me every single day and gets me up every single day to make those uncomfortable phone calls and push through. Yeah.
It's completely different in terms of the emotional aspect, but at the same time there are some similar strands when you first start hiring people, because all of a sudden you have to be able to come up with their paycheck every 2 weeks. Now, in the early days, that was really challenging. It still can be, it's still something to think about. Not so much now, thankfully, because we've done well, but it's that feeling that you're responsible for others, to others. And I tell you what, it's going to be a really motivating thing for you, because rather than, if you get going for a couple of months and have a bit of, a lot more money, which is actually one of the things that held me back, all of a sudden you can become irresponsible because you think, shit, this is great. I'm actually working less in terms of grinding. It's more fun to work because you get to use your charisma and your flair to engage with clients, solve their problems. And having a dependent, I think, is I imagine it would be a very good thing that keeps your feet on the earth, so to speak, and keeps you grounded. And God, my brain really isn't working very well today. It keeps you grounded, and it allows you to remember why part of, the real rationale behind why you wanted to do it all in the first place. The other thing I was going to say about what you're talking about, taking that plunge and getting on and actually doing it, is you're someone, Cleo, that has always been able to identify and watch with almost 4 eyes rather than 2. I don't know if you wear glasses or not. That wasn't a shitty joke about you wearing glasses, but you've got like extra eyes to watch what's going on when we work together. And when I see you doing stuff with you now, you've got more attentiveness than the average person. And that extra attentiveness is what an entrepreneur needs to actually be able to understand the full picture of what's going on in all the angles. Jess Ryder, who we had on here a few times, the lady in Australia who started the gym, she also has that full attentiveness to the full scope of everything that's going on in a very holistic way. If you have that and you're in a business as an employee and that business can't find the room for you to grow within their structure, you need to get out and do it yourself, because you're always going to put that extra energy in and have that oomph and see the angles, and not being able to actually work those angles and have a proper reward remuneration structure in terms of incentives to be working those angles cripples people who have that ability. And I think that all the fear around and all the other people, like you talked about, Gary Vee talks a lot about, it can be your parents, it can be your spouse, it can be your old school teacher, it could be your boss, your colleagues, your kids, like thinking, don't do this. And that's not because they're out to get you or they don't believe in you. That's their own fears projected out onto you. I remember a few years ago, a long time ago, about 15 years ago, a guy called Ben Ruth, who some of the people that watch this podcast will know really well, is a great runner and a great dude, quite an eccentric guy, like a cool guy. But he's got a very successful insurance brokerage down in Tauranga now. And this guy, he was a great runner, national champion, record holder, amazing guy, massive energy for life. We were doing what was Dick Quacks and Davies? They had a run in the park or something. I think you might have done it with us at Fortune Manning, and they were the corporate challenge in the Domain.
Yeah.
And we were there one day, and afterwards he was like, Shano, look how many people are here. How many people do you think have done this? 5,000, 6,000? He goes, look out there. He goes, how many of these people do you think are running? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe 20%. He's like, I reckon 15%. He goes, and he had this great brain on him for a young guy. He goes, look, I don't want to sound negative. He goes, but doesn't that tell you something about most people's energy levels and actual work ethic? I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, the people that came out of a workplace that came and did the corporate challenge are probably the more motivated, energetic ones. And that's true. Like anyone that would go from a workplace of say 60 people, I think we used to have about 10 at our firm that would go and do the corporate challenge. Now, if only 10% of those more energetic ones have actually run 5K, what does that say to you about how hard people out there are actually trying? They're not. A lot of them don't try super hard in things. So if you want to go into business and you've got that ability and you actually got the work ethic, and I think more than anything else, something that never came naturally to me is the patience, which I'm slowly learning. You can do super well. Now, super well, you might not be a billionaire, but if you can earn a couple of $100,000 a year out of your business, then, and you don't have a boss and you enjoy working with your clients and you love your staff, then you're a winner all day in my eyes. And to be able to go out and do that is probably a more realistic goal than to go all this, whole, bling and, billionaire like boat and all this sort of crap, which you actually need an incredible amount of talent and good fortune to actually be, and work ethic to be able to do. I think there's a story to be told about people going out there and carving out their own living in their own way that might not look glamorous to the outside world, but it's a damn good life to live. And that's where I'm slowly getting to. And that's a super cool place to be. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it comes down to your why as well. Why are you doing this? Is it to get because if it is to get the boat and everything else, that's totally fine as well. But just having an understanding of that. And then also like why people would engage in your services, like what value do you provide in the market? But for me, I think my why is definitely the ability to go above and beyond for myself and for my clients, and that it's not measured by that shitty annual review that you get every 12 months where it's really only like the last 2 months that they can remember is discussed. It's my value is measured by what my clients are saying about me and how much money is that they're paying me as well, so which is all based on the value that I'm delivering. So that's amazing to be able to do that, and that's what gets me up every day, except for this week being in lockdown where I've taken a step back.
I think there's something in that what you said though about the whole value proposition. I think lockdown taught me that until then, for the first 6 or 7 years in business, it was all about and it was a very lawyerly way of looking at it. And you know what I mean by that. It's how much am I billing? How am I going to get more clients? And how am I going to make more money out of my clients? That was the basic thinking. And there was more empathy and engagement in the relationships. And that, of course, there were. But at the heart of the commercial or entrepreneurial thinking, it was that. Then during COVID, like just watching heaps of cool content and having a bit of time to work on rather than in the business, I was able to reconceptualize my why, so to speak. So all of a sudden it was like, hey, I am actually proud of this business. I am good at what I do. I am good at teaching my juniors, and I can see them growing and becoming really fine young lawyers. And this is a cool little thing to do. And all of a sudden, all the other stuff that I used to fret about ceased to be such a focus and a problem. And all of a sudden you're building something that you get up for in the morning. And if you have a bad day like I did a few days ago, who really gives a shit? Because like you see, we've got 30 years, a 30-year journey for us to actually realize the full potential of whatever we're building. And so a bad day or week or whatever, you just wake up, you just, sometimes give up, go away and start again, and you feel all the better for it. But if you don't have that way of conceptualizing your why and your journey and all of that and being able to look at it in the macro, then you're always kind of feeling like you're only as good as your last little fee or your last little engagement with a client or your last bit of work. That's not a very reassuring way to feel, because it means you're only ever as good as your last emotion, which is actually quite a up and down lopsided way to live. Dangerous.
Yeah, you definitely can't be well, I don't know about everyone else, but I have found that in probably the first 6 months I was very reactive, as you were saying, to every word that was said, every feedback. Because I experienced a lot of rejection in the first 6 months. I mean, now it is getting easier because your name gets out there and you get recognized as being the best. But in the first 6 months, it was just like, who are you again? And it was always no. So I had to learn very quickly to not take that personally, because they're not saying no to me as a person. They don't know who I am. They don't know what my service is. There's no clarity around what I'm delivering. So getting more. The best story
I ever heard about rejection and was that guy Don Ha. Eventually came unstuck a bit anyway for some other stuff, but it's an amazing story. He's a Vietnamese guy, real estate agent out south, Ray White, and I know a guy I know who used to mentor him back in like the 80s or 90s, said he struggled so much. He had about 5 goes at getting his REAA license, which back then apparently they made it a lot tougher. Now it was pretty easy. So he just didn't understand anything. And they said he didn't get it to the extent that he'd be walking around door knocking in South Auckland streets, and he'd see a rival agency. He'd see the rival agency's big placard up saying "call agent blah 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 blah." He would think that was an opportunity to sell their house, so he'd ring up the number on the say it's like Bailey's or something, and introduce himself and say he'll sell their property for them, and the other agent would go, "Fuck off, mate! I'm selling this property. Don't you get it?" And he apparently just had no idea, and that guy became an outrageously successful agent. Just sheer perseverance. So isn't that a great story? He was so out of the loop with what was going on that he was just belligerently kept trying and trying and trying, and he got there.
Yeah. Sometimes knowledge can be can block you in some ways when you know too much, and I think that goes back to taking action. And when you do just go out and start a business, you don't know, like in knowing too much. If I had known, if someone had said to me what I was about to experience over the last 9 months, would I go into business for myself? I mean, it's been amazing, such an incredible journey, and I love every minute of it. But if someone had described the last 9 months, which is hard work, being rejected all the time, having, just long hours, working to the early hours in the morning, sometimes no breaks, no money, then I probably wouldn't have been so keen. So yeah, on that example that you use, I think that's a perfect example of why knowledge sometimes gets in the way of entrepreneurial talent.
Mm. It definitely does for things like what you and I do, like the services-based, knowledge-based industry. Is when you're selling the application of knowledge to solve a problem, and you can get too much of your horsepower can be directed in knowing all the angles. The truth is you only need a rudimentary amount of knowledge in an area to go and add value for someone. And where I've managed to become quite successful with this business is when we're engaged to do what I would call quite a lot of sort of commercial GP work for clients, or shareholders agreements, or smaller sales and purchase of assets, or some smaller scale M&A stuff. If it gets to the point where someone wants to raise money, or where someone's got a very complicated set of bank instructions from BNZ that they need, I might get my friend down at DLA, who's a partner there, to help me out. I might get my friends at Alexander Dorrington to help with property stuff. I might bring people in, because I know the lifetime value of this client might be 150,000, or it might be 500,000, it might be a lot of money. And I also know that if I give them to a specialist for a job that is actually beyond me in terms of my skill set or my experience, or my team's skill set and experience, the fact that someone else did that particular job, but they have the relationship with me, and that person I'm referring to wouldn't steal that person because they know they'd be cutting off their nose to spite their face, is a really quite a good way to be Steve Smith, my friend from ABC, who started ABC Business Sales. He told me once, the key is always being in the middle of everything. You've always got to get in the middle as much as you can. And you won't always have the ticket, but the long-term effect of being in the middle of all these transactions and all these people, you can't lose. They don't care sometimes if you're the one who did the work or not. And that's a lot of lawyers, they don't want to meet other lawyers. They don't want to refer to other lawyers. And it's the same often with accountants. But I've had really good experiences and success with dealing with other lawyers in that way. I'm never scared to give things away to people I trust. It's really good. And, and I would encourage you, anybody else watching, to also have that collaborative as opposed to competitive approach to doing business, because in the long run, in services, you can't lose.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really great point. And especially in the area of risk and compliance, because depending on which, I work for a diverse range of companies and sectors. So that means that they're supervised by different bodies as well. And to be able to deliver well and the best, I do have to engage with other specialists, which is what I do. I've got one next week that I have a specialist working with me on it. And that's what you need to do, because I'm only one person. I can't know everything, and risk and compliance is such a broad space. So to be able to cover all of your bases, that's definitely something that I do. And I refer out a lot of stuff where I just don't do that area as well. And yeah, so I do agree with you 100%. And it always comes back as well, and you build those really meaningful relationships, and you actually learn quite a lot on the way. So if you have a question, you've always got those people that you can bounce off, which I'm sure you have as well.
What can happen too is that you, through watching a specialist do something, you start to understand a little bit more the parameters they're working within. So the next time, or the next few times you do that transaction, you might do some of the...
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's like, I'll hold the phone for you. I'm like, okay, that's good.
Now
sorry.
can you do that?
Teamwork.
Teamwork. Okay, that's fine.
Can you put it through when you...
Okay, all right. Sorry.
You're very calm and patient. Like it.
Yeah.
I think if I had kids and that was me, I'd be like, put the friggin' fucking thing down. Leave me alone.
No, you wouldn't be like that. See, I thought.
No, I wouldn't. I remember what we were talking about.
Who knows? It was about like using other people in your industry, helping.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just, I think you can, when you've seen these people do what they do, then you might bite a little bit more off the next time. I'm not talking about something really obtuse or highly esoteric or specialized. I'm just talking.
Hang on no, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. So.
Shit, I'll be scared if you see this.
Sorry. Yes.
That's all good. Showing a human side. Yeah, I think that you can start to bite off a little bit more of the cherry sometimes, and you can possibly do some more of the lead work. I've been able to do that quite well, but I'm lucky having Chris Patterson, as my neighbour where we rent our space, that you can start to do some of the more lead work, or almost like, say, pre-dispute or pre-court work in areas, because you can sort of glean from how they handle some of that before it gets to the point where it goes thermonuclear. So that's been a good area for us. And you still have to know when you're out of your depth, but there's definitely room to be able to muscle in, so to speak, and take over some of that work in the dispute area. And that's a good example of, but again, you have to have those four eyes watching all the time. You have to be watching how they're addressing things. And like another good point on that is there is a different behavior that is successful even in different areas of the law. Like, for example, with relationship-based front-end commercial type work, it's often about a slow burn to get them to trust you and to see value, and then demonstrate that over quite a period. With what, say, Chris does in litigation, then you need usually like really desperate, really need reassurance on the spot, instill confidence, and at the same time they need to pay that person like Chris quite a lot of money, usually up front, to take on the risk of taking on. And it's a completely different behavior. Often litigators have a different, more abrupt bedside manner, and they're more of like the specialist surgeon coming in to do the task. That's where all the energy goes. It's not the relationship guy. So you got to figure out what you are, what suits you better. I couldn't do what Chris does. I don't think he could do what I do. But luckily we've both found our areas that work for us, and that's what everybody needs to do, because we're going to do this to be successful at anything. You have to do it for a long time, and you have to enjoy it. Otherwise, if it feels like it's work, it feels really arduous.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because with people going out into business for themselves, so there's a Holy Shot, there's a cafe down the road, and she's like 21 years old or something in Takapuna.
Wow.
And yeah, amazing. She's so entrepreneurial, just love what she's about. And just went and started a coffee shop. And, it's doing really well. It's an established coffee shop now. Like, it's got a cult following now.
Go there today.
Yes, we'll go there today. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But you know, the skills that she's learning right now, maybe she doesn't want to be a coffee shop owner forever. She just has pure entrepreneurial talent. She's got the work ethic, the ideas, she's creative. And even if you fail in that area, it may be that you are still meant for, you know, life as a business owner, but maybe you haven't found the industry that you're more suited to. Maybe you haven't found your space. So taking action and going out there, that's the first step to actually finding your way. And I've over Christmas re-established all of my services. So I have I've restructured my service offering, because like you, I had it over that first 6-month period. I had actually understood where I fit in the market, where the gaps are, and where I can spend the most energy delivering the best service to the clients that I want to be working with. So that's such a good point.
Awesome. I think I need to go. I need to go and actually do some paid work, so I can afford. So I can afford to keep having the extravagance of doing these fun video chats.
Yes, definitely. I think I need to go and spend some time with Malachi. So.
Take him to Holy Shot.
Yeah, definitely. But thanks so much for having me, and enjoy.
No, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure. And look, eventually we'll get to putting those recommendations from our AML audit into practice. We'll get there eventually.
What happened to your January strategy?
Got rescheduled. COVID. We felt that there was a lockdown coming, so we thought we'd better rejig things, but we'll get there. I'll talk to our compliance officer.
All right. Well,
thanks, Cleo.
See ya. Bye.
See ya, mate. Bye.